What is one of Satan's most effective lies within the body of Christ? The one that cripples our influence in the culture. I can almost guarantee it's not the one you're thinking of right now. This is Brad Bright. Welcome to the God is Issue podcast, where I show how God is the issue in every issue. Why? Because we can trace all our human problems to our view of God. Folks, if you find this podcast helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. And when subscribing, don't forget to click on the bell so you'll be notified whenever I post a new podcast. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like the problems out there are just too big? Do you feel like the world's going crazy and there's nothing you can do to make it better? Shootings, beatings, corruption, economic insecurity, an epidemic of sexual brokenness, hypocrisy in the church, war, hate, so much hate. What can one ordinary person possibly do to even begin to make a dent? If that is where you find yourself today, Satan has you exactly where he wants you to be, defeated before you even begin. Folks, the first step in moving from paralysis to action is recognizing that God never calls you to be successful, not once. He calls you to be faithful. Embracing that truth is the first step to making a real difference. And you can make a difference. Let me tell you a few stories of pretty average people who made a difference. Now let's talk about what you can do. I'll begin with a story about a young girl named Linda whose future looked like prison. That is until an ordinary couple one day did something very simple. You see, Linda grew up in a family of felons. Both her parents did time. All her siblings grew up to be criminals as well, but not Linda. Why? You see, down the street was a godly family who extended the love of Christ to her. They took her to church with them every Sunday. They bought her a nice dress to wear to church. And every Sunday afternoon, that family became her family. See, Linda told me that because of their love and example, she saw that she could make a different choice than her parents and siblings, and she did. Now today, Linda has 3 boys of her own and is married to Christian recording artist Wintley Phipps. By the way, if you have never heard Wintley sing Amazing Grace, then you don't fully understand the song. He brings tears to my eyes every time. But Linda and Wintley also help at-risk children. They have touched thousands of lives, all because of one family who said, we're going to make a difference in the life of one little girl. What if instead they had said, we can't make a difference? There was this Christian couple who lived in the Hollywood Hills in the late 1940s. They rented a house to this young, ambitious, agnostic businessman. They often invited him to come to church with them, but he always declined. But one day, he decided to go to their church alone. He snuck in after the service started, slipped into the back pew, listened, and then slipped out before the service was over so that no one could buttonhole him. This went on for months. Finally, he became convinced that Jesus was who he said he was. Folks, that young agnostic businessman was my dad, Bill Bright. He went on to start the largest missionary movement of the 20th century. He wrote the 4 Spiritual Laws, which is the most widely distributed gospel tract in history. My dad said that in retrospect, the couple probably had no idea how to explain to someone else how they could begin a relationship with the living God. So they did what they could. They invited him to church. What if instead they had said, we can't make a difference? I remember during my time on staff with Crew at the University of Washington, there was a student confined to a wheelchair who couldn't even speak clearly and had to type on her keyboard in order to communicate. Going through the lunch line one day, she typed on her keyboard, asking the cashier if she would like to talk after she got off work about her relationship with God. If that severely handicapped student can speak up to make a difference in someone else's life, well, I don't know about you, but folks, I have no excuse. I can make a difference. You can make a difference. You just have to do what you can do today, and then again tomorrow, trusting God to work through you. If you focus on what you can't do rather than on what you can do, then you're right. You won't ever make a real difference, and Satan has your focus exactly where he wants it. So folks, open your eyes. Focus on what God can do through you. There are opportunities all around you to make a difference every day. I know some of you are thinking, but Brad, that's not what I mean. America's in trouble, and I can't do anything to make a difference in the big picture. I get it, but you're wrong. Folks, remember what is true. Politics, government, DEI, and critical race theory can never banish racism from the human heart. Never. But God can. Gun control will never banish violence and hatred from people's hearts. But God can. Laws can never fix sexually broken people. But God can. Let me ask you, where does real societal change start? Does it start in Washington, D.C., or in the heart of your neighbor next door? If it starts in Washington, D.C., we're all in trouble. But if it starts in the heart of your neighbor next door, well, then don't tell me you can't make a real difference. What if David, the shepherd boy, had said, that giant's too big, I'm just a kid, I can't make a difference? What if Daniel, as a teenager, had said, nope, the king is a pagan, I can't make a difference? What if the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish had said, nope, I don't have enough food, I can't make a difference? What if the disciples had said, no, we really can't make a difference because we're just not that smart? See, the 12 disciples had far fewer resources than we do, but they chose to do what they could do where they were, empowered by the Spirit of God. Fisherman, a tax collector, a zealot, and they changed the course of history. Sometimes, folks, I think we forget that they started out as very ordinary people, just like us. Each of us can make a difference where we are. We can ask our neighbor over for dinner. If you're too scared to ask them the God question, then ask them over for dinner once a month until they eventually ask you to tell them your story. Then talk about your story, including your God story. Or you can volunteer to serve at a food kitchen once a month, or at a pregnancy center, or find a ministry that reaches out to prisoners, or our mentoring program for kids who don't have a dad around. The options are almost limitless. You can make a difference. You just have to be willing to take the first step. Is that going to change America today? No, of course, it's not going to. But it will change one piece of America today. I want to give you something to think about to expand your perspective. If you introduced one person to Jesus this year, and then you spent the following year helping that person grow in their relationship with God, and then next year, both of you repeated that process, after 2 years, there'd be 4 of you, right? And after 3 years, there'd be 8 of you. And after 4 years, there'd be 16. I don't have 16 fingers. In less than 30 years, you would have reached every American with the good news of Jesus through a chain of personal relationships that began with you. Go do the math. You'll see I'm right. By the way, I got that strategy from Jesus and the Apostle Paul. You see, win your neighbor today, win America tomorrow. Do you still believe you really can't make a difference? Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Either that's true or God lied. Which is it? It's either one or the other. Will you take God at his word or not? You just have to decide to start where you are. If you're not willing to start somewhere, then you're right. You really can't make a difference. Talk to God about it. He is the smartest guy in the room. I think he can give you some good ideas if you'll just ask him. Folks, what baby step can you take tomorrow to get started? America is waiting. The world is waiting. God is the issue in every issue, especially when it comes to making a lasting difference. This is Brad Bright. Thanks for joining me today, and God bless.